Good Tavach, everybody. Shavua Tov. Good week. Great to have everybody online together for another Parsha class. Our sages tell us, Al tiyeh birchas hedjit kal lefanecha. The blessings of a simple, regular person should not be light in your eyes. It should not be simple in your eyes. It shouldn't look as if, oh, I'm getting a blessing, this is just a regular person, nothing special. So Talmud tells us no. A simple person's giving you a blessing can open up in heaven untold new or bring down from heaven rather things that are in store for us that are untold. Now, that's a simple individual. A tzaddik, a righteous person, their blessings take on a whole new, perspective, a whole new appreciation that their blessing is something, first of all, that is a blessing that has great power to it to come into fruition. Not only that, it's not even just a blessing for the moment or for that individual, it can go far and above and beyond. And in particular, when it comes to our particular Parsha that we're speaking about. So we're in Parshah Toldos. This is the one Parsha that we get to know a little about. I should say one Parsha, but it's the main Parsha that is telling us about Yitzchak, Isaac, and of his two sons, of course, Yaakov and Esav. And as we all know the story, what does he say? He's getting old. He's actually blind at this point. And he wants to make certain that the next generation should be prepared. Now, in this class, we're not going to go into the well-known question, why is it that Yitzchak wants to bless Esau, where Rivka wants, and rightfully so, that the blessing should go to Yaakov. That's a whole different discussion that will be discussed Wednesday night in JLI. But not here. That's not tonight's. Tonight we're going to go into the blessing itself, or a part of the blessing, a phrase in it actually, and the prelude to the blessing. But in part of the prelude, what does he say? Yitzchak says, make for me tasty foods and bring it to me. What does he need tasty foods for? To give blessings, and then thereafter I will bless you. The tasty foods were actually to be as offerings to God. And being that he's a holy man, so he's like the Kohen who eats of those offerings, is on a simple level to appreciate and to understand. There's much more on that actually in Tanya, in the first part of Tanya in chapter 15. That's another full discussion. And as we know the story, as he tells this to Esau, Rivka overhears, and knowing that the appropriate person is Yaakov to get the blessing, so she prepares the tasty foods, and she prepares him also with skins that should cover him on the neck and on the shoulder, on the arms, because Esau was a very lots of hair, a hairy person, shall we say, right? And as we know the story, he goes in and he gets the blessings from his father. His father questions because he hears his voice, and it sounds like the voice of Yaakov. But then he touches him. Remember, he's blind. And he says, well, the voice is the voice of Jacob, where the hands are the hands of Esau, which is a famous line that has also much meaning to it beyond just the fact in the moment. And he eats the food, and he begins to give him a blessing. Now, right before the blessing, we'll get into the phrase later on, but now what we want to get into is the blessing itself. And we're going to share over here. Okay, all right. Everybody see it in front of them? Text 1b, clear? So, what does it say? And may God give you of the dew of the heavens and of the fatness of the earth and an abundance of grain and wine. Nations shall serve you, and kingdoms shall bow down to you. You shall be a master over your brothers, and your mother's sons shall bow down to you. Those who curse you shall be cursed, and those who bless you shall be blessed. Now, a beautiful blessing that Yitzchak gives to Yaakov, to Jacob. Esav is still out there hunting and trying to put a meal together, and he outwits him. And again, what's the whole meaning behind this? What's the understanding of this? That's not for tonight, although it's an important thing to appreciate. Wednesday night. But there's something that needs to be understood here. So if you look in the text before you, for those who understand the Hebrew, it says, Vayiten lacha Elokim, and may God give to you. The verse begins with the word and. What do you mean, and may God give to you? May God give to you. The word and means it's a conjunction, it's adding something to something that's already there. What's already there? So Rashi is troubled by this because if this is the beginning of the blessing, it should be Yitin Lacha, may God give you, not and may God give you. So Rashi explains, says Yiten v'yachzor v'yiten. Rashi explains that it means and may God give you, and may he give and give again. So what does this mean exactly? First of all, what's the first giving? And what's the second giving? Furthermore, we need to understand is who are we talking about that's supposed to give? Anybody? Who's giving over here?
Yaakov's giving the blessing.
Yeah, but who's the he? God. We're talking about God over here to give, right? So what's the repetitiveness? Now, they say that the appetite comes with eating, right? The appetite to give also comes with giving. And when you give, and the person receives it so nicely, it gives you an appetite that you want to even give more, right? That's on a human level. But we're talking about God is giving over here. If God's giving, why doesn't he just give it all at once? Why is there a giving and another giving? As if like there was something lacking the first time, something missing the first time. There was something missing the first time. What was missing? And again, for a human being, you could say they were missing something. But for God Almighty, what was lacking? And this is the Rebbe's question. Text number 3. What was lacking in the first gift? Give. That warranted an additional gift. Give again. If we're talking about a human giver, we could understand, even when one gives a very large and abundant gift, at the end of the day, it has a limit in as much as the giver is limited. Therefore, it can be supplemented by an additional gift. But in our case, the giver is God. Certainly, God's first gift is complete and unlimited, as God himself is complete and unlimited. If so, what is added by giving again? Question clear? Thumbs up. Wonderful. Right. So there obviously has to be something that's uniquely different. Now, let's make sure we have context over here on how important this is. This is not merely a blessing that Yaakov is getting. Remember, Yaakov is going to be the father of the 12 tribes of Israel. This is a blessing for the entirety of the Jewish people. Yaakov will be the progenitor, will be the continuation, the continuity that is from Avraham, his grandfather, to Yitzchak, his father, and now him. So this is something that, of course, is going to touch every single Jew for now until all of eternity. So we need to understand. Okay? Sorry. Yes, so by the way, I realize on Facebook, I put up that it's on Chabad Zichron, but really it's on my page. And I don't know how to get it from there. Trying to.
Ask Pascal. He's very good at that.
Pascal, for some reason I can't share it.
You've shared it already somewhere else?
No, for some reason why can't I share it? I'm the administrator for.
Are you on Facebook right now, somewhere else?
I'm on Facebook, on my personal Facebook. I want to share it to Chabad Zichron because that's really where I told, and for some reason I'm not able to share it there. It's not giving me the.
Yeah, I think you might need to start it from Zichron.
All right, what I have to do next week, I have to just put it, let everybody know that who wants to watch on Facebook that it's on my Facebook, not Chabad.
Yeah, just send them the link now. They can probably.
What?
Send them the link to your public.
Yeah, that's what I'll have to do. Okay, sorry for the interruption there. I see that there aren't people on Facebook, which there usually are. For some reason, that's not giving me the capability to share it. Okay. All right. So this is profoundly important to understand what this blessing is, because again, it's not just a blessing for Yaakov, it's a blessing for him as being the embodiment of the Jewish people, 12 tribes, the entire Jewish people. And therefore it is any tzaddik that gives a blessing is a blessing that is not, is something very meaningful, but a tzaddik giving another righteous individual, we're talking about here the forefathers. So of course it has great significance. So to understand this, we're going to now go off for a moment on another idea that's brought down in Pirkei Avos, in the Ethics of Our Fathers. In chapter 2, there's a very famous sage called Rabbi Menzaka. I don't know if you've heard the name before, but he was the leader of the Jewish people, the head of the Sanhedrin in the times of the destruction of the Holy Temple by the Romans in the year 69. He was a student of Hillel and Shammai. He was, in a way, you could say, the one who saved Judaism. Actually, there's a whole debate in the Gemara, Talmud, about him, that, there are people who questioned what he did. Famous story that he snuck out of Jerusalem because there was infighting with the zealots inside Jerusalem, and he snuck out and he met with the general who was making a siege on Jerusalem, Vespasian. A famous story that we won't go into all of the details, but just to know that he asked for the sages and Yavne to be saved, because Jerusalem, he knew, would not be salvaged. And as a result, Judaism now carried forward after the destruction, because there was still no longer a temple, a physical temple, but there was still a very strong commitment to Torah teachings that then was only oral and would continue forward. In any case, the Mishnah speaks about 5 students that he had. And these 5 students, he was speaking about their great qualities and their great character qualities. In one, there's 2 different Mishnahs, one speaking about character qualities and another about learning capability. And that's what we're going to look at right now. So we have over here in front of us the Mishnah, Rabbi Menzaka. He had 5 disciples. Rabbi Elazar ben Hyrcanus, Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, Rabbi Yossi HaKohen. I mean, he had many more than 5, but these are 5 that in reference over here. Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel, Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch. He would recount their praises. Rabbi Elazar ben Hyrcanus. He is cemented cistern that doesn't lose a drop. Meaning, whatever he was taught, he had total recall, photographic memory, remembered everything. Nothing went by him that he didn't recall in Torah teachings. Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, fortunate is she who gave birth to him. Rabbi Yossi HaKohen, a chassid, a pious one. Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel, fears sin. Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch, he is an ever-increasing wellspring. So the Mishnah continues, and it says, Rabbi Yechanan would say, if all the sages of Israel, excluding these that we just mentioned, these sages, were to be on one cup of the balance scale, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, who is this cement cistern that doesn't lose a drop, on the other, he would outweigh them all. That's how great he is in Torah learning. Abba Shul said in his name, in Rabbi Yechanan's name, if all the sages of Israel were on one cup and of the balance scale, Rabbi Elazar ben Hyrcanus included, and now he's including even this one who we just mentioned, right? And Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch was on the other, the latter would outweigh them all. Meaning, Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch, what was his greatness? That he was a Maina Mizgaber. He was a ever-increasing wellspring. What's the difference between the two? So a cement cistern, right, doesn't lose a drop. Whatever you put into that cistern is not going to lose anything because it's made out of cement, as long as there's no cracks in it, I guess, right? It's a metaphor. So of course, but the ever-increasing wellspring means that whatever you've been given, you're able to be creative on your own accord and have ingenuity to now add to the teachings. So the final analysis, who is greater? Elazar ben Aruch, because he not only was able to regurgitate everything that he was taught, but he was able now to bring it to new levels of excellence, of creativity, of understanding in Torah learning. Now, interestingly enough, folks, for those who came to lesson number 2 in this past JLI class, this is exactly the point that we brought out. And here is the point once again. There is and just to repeat that idea, basically over here, there's 2 modes on how you can connect to God's divine wisdom, from top down or bottom up. Top down is that you are completely receptive. You are so receptive to the message that you put yourself aside, abnegate yourself in order to hear the teacher so clearly that you are able to regurgitate everything from the teacher, from your master. So Rabbi Yechanan had such a student, Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus. He was able to abnegate himself, to put himself, there was no him, right? There was, in order to be able to be a total focus, to be able to maintain everything. Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch, on the other hand, he was bottom up. What does that mean, bottom up? He was able now to use his own powers. In other words, he was taught in such a way that not only could he regurgitate, but he was given the skills and the capability from his master, from his teacher, that he is now able to take these teachings and bring it to new levels of understanding, to bring it to new other areas of creativity. So not just to regurgitate, but to able to now broaden that message that was given and to broaden it and to bring it into many other areas of life. So, in a sense, both are important. Both are invaluable, right? Because why? What is the virtue of the top down? What's the virtue of it? Andrew, since you listened to the class today.
The virtue is that you're basically a sponge. You're getting whatever you have. And if you can accept everything without your own thought process, which is the reason you do it up. But you indicated it's got to be both. I mean, the benefit is to be both.
Absolutely. But now we're just taking apart the different virtues. That was the conclusion in the class.
I mean, if you can be a sponge and you have photographic memory, you're
right.
So, right.
So the top down is great, because what it means is you get it exactly the way the teacher gave it to you. And the teacher in the end is the teacher and you're the student, right? So the teacher is greater than you in their knowledge. And therefore you're able to get it, that the light is a greater light, because you are maintaining that light of that teacher. The wellspring that now churns out, ever increasing wellspring, the virtue in that is, now, does that mean you don't lose something? Maybe you may have lost something. You may have lost something. Perhaps, maybe not. But the virtue in it is that you now have your own creativity, that you can bring it to much higher level of, or new levels of excellence. You may not be able to have the perfect photo, the copy of the teachings precisely as they are. But what you're able to do is now integrate it and make it a part of a fabric of your being, and now bring it to new levels of creativity, of an understanding. Is that clear? Now with this, we can understand the blessing of Yitzchak to Yaakov. Give and give again. Give is that he's getting a blessing like the cemented cistern, right? He's getting the way it is from above. Perfect. But he's getting it again, meaning he's getting the ever-increasing wellspring, is also something that he is being given. Let's take a look at the, by the way, whoever can put their lovely face to the Zoom class, that would be amazing and appreciated. It makes the experience all the more better, for me at least. All right, so the Rebbe says like this: the difference between cemented cistern and the ever-increasing wellspring as applied to Jacob's blessing. Jacob didn't just receive goodness from above, he also received the ability to stand on his own 2 feet, to develop that goodness in a personal way using his own resources. This is what it means to give and give again. Isaac blessed Jacob that God give him the goodness from above, which that goodness is top down, is full, complete, right? So it wasn't anything missing there. God gave it complete, as God can give it. But then he has to give again, because it's a different quality. It's a different type of blessing. The ability to use the goodness and strengthen himself with it on his own. So, in other words, to be able to internalize it and to make it yours, to own it, to make it yours, is what we're talking about in the second blessing. Even that also is God's blessing. Listen to this, and it's an important thing. We all have talents, right? We all have talents. And sometimes we use our talents really well. And that's what we're talking about over here. Using your talents really well that you've been given, and then take whatever you have received and now make something from it much greater than whatever tools you or whatever material you've been given, and to make something much more profound and much more meaningful and much more expansive than the materials themselves. So you might think, well, that's a great credit to me because I brought it bottom up to new levels. We have to know that that's God's blessings, because it's Yitain, Yachsav Yitain. Who's giving? God's giving. So even when it's bottom up, right, that you have a photographic memory and you can remember everything, obviously you know that that's God's blessing. You didn't create your brains, right? You didn't create that capacity. So of course you're going to recognize and know that that's where the blessing came from and be thankful. But here we're talking about now taking what you've been given, integrating it, owning it, making it yours, and now being an ever-increasing wellspring to bring it to greater, even that capacity, recognize it's a gift from above. And this is what God is giving to Yaakov, right? That he'd be able to take the seeds of whatever it is and to be able to make from that seed, plant it into something tremendous and beautiful. Is that clear? Any questions on that? Rebbe takes it further. Not satisfied, shall we say, in just understanding it on this level of the human capacity of using intelligence, using one's qualities, right? The Rebbe takes it further. And he says, this concept of cemented cistern and an ever-increasing wellspring is also the difference between two different types of people, not just qualities that we have, right? Top down, bottom up, right? But two different types of people, two different ways to serve God. And there are basically two different ways we can serve God, two general ways. One is that cemented cistern, and one is the ever-increasing wellspring. So what does the cemented cistern represent? It represents that individual doesn't lose a thing. Everything's in place. Every moment in the day, every drop in that bucket, in that cistern, is accounted for. Everything is precise in their life. What kind of person is that? Anybody know someone like that? Not me. Anybody know someone like that? It's a tzaddik. Tzaddik is that everything is accounted for. Every drop of life, every life-giving moment is accounted for. For those who ever see videos of the Rebbe or had the privilege of seeing the Rebbe and his physical presence with us in the world, saw how every moment it was accounted for. Every moment was there was an engagement. Every drop of that cistern, being it's a cement cistern, is accounted for. So that's that tzaddik. What is this wellspring? This wellspring is bottom up, right? That's what a wellspring comes from the bottom, right? And it's ever increasing. That represents a Baal Tshuva, someone who has maybe strayed from the path, or not necessarily strayed from the path, but isn't just going level by level, step by step, but is an ever increasing energy that is much stronger than that cistern that is, every drop is accounted for. This Baal Tshuva could be someone who's gone off the path, or someone who is serving in this manner, even if they haven't gone off the path, which means taking from deeper places, place that is like very in the depths of the earth, that represents very negative forces, and to be able to transform them into a wellspring of life. Come think about it. Where do those well springs come from? Very deep places, right? Covered up, which metaphorically, and this is all a metaphor, so very important. Actually, just to back up for a moment on that idea of a metaphor. Everything's a metaphor. We should be able to see the world around us constantly, consistently, in a metaphoric manner. And to see how, and when you do that, you know what you're doing? You're allowing God to talk to you. You're allowing him to speak to you, because God is animating that moment. He's animating whether it's the sun. He's animating whether it's the foliage that you're seeing. Well, here in Montreal, there's no foliage left on the trees. I think I counted 3 dead leaves on my tree in front today. Probably not there anymore. But all of that is God speaking, because God is creating the world, something from nothing, with his word every moment. So God is communicating. So therefore, if he's communicating, you need to understand what's he saying. Well, just as he comes to the prophets in parable, so he comes to us in metaphor. Others understanding how everything speaks to us in a metaphorical manner, right? So here we're taking the cemented cistern, right? And we're making a metaphor out of it. Well, and it becomes something very real, very significant, taking an ever-increasing wellspring. And it's a metaphor, because it is. It's not just something that God creates to, that we can have some rivers run through our town so we could go canoeing in the summer, or that we could get some drinking water. Of course it's for that, but it's much more than that. It's a message for us. So here the message is, it's coming from a very deep place, and it's bringing it forward in a manner that it's giving vitality, giving life. That's the concept of a Baal Tshuva, who can take from a very deep, can be a very negative, dark place, because that's where the reservoir is coming from. It's covered over, like klipa is a shell that covers over. So it's coming from this covered place. And where is it coming to? Shooting forward in an ever-increasing manner, and it's life-giving waters. It's a metaphor for the Baal Tshuva. Is that clear? Yeah? So who is this Baal Tshuva? So Shlakesh tells us in the Gemara and the Talmud, what does he tell us? He tells us the following. He tells us, Shlakesh said, great is repentance, for it transforms one's sins into merits. As the verse states, and when a wicked man repents of his wickedness and performs justice and righteousness, he shall live because of them. In other words, because of your sin, now you're bringing life, right? So you're taking from this deep place in the earth below, and now you're making it ever increasing, because it's actually giving you life from that negative place. You're transforming it. That's the right. There's many a story of former bank robbers and computer hackers who now are helping law enforcement and how to track these people, because they know best, right? And now that they've gone on a straight path, they want to make good, presumably, hopefully, right? And therefore they're helping. right? In the Jewish way, this idea is much more profound. Well, this Reish Lakish himself. Reish Lakish, we've told this story before, and we will tell it again. Anybody remember Reish Lakish? I'll tell you the story. Rabbi Yochanan, this is in the 3rd century, was bathing in the Jordan River, and Reish Lakish was a bank robber, a thief, no good. And Reish Lakish saw him, and he jumped into the Jordan River to pursue him. Rabbi Yochanan said, "Your strength, you should use it for Torah study." And Reish Lakish looked at him and said, "Your beauty, you should use it for women." He says, "You think I have beauty? My sister is much more beautiful. If you will come and learn with me Torah, I'll introduce you to her at the right time." I guess he had something inside of him after Yiddish neshama, Jewish soul, and he took up and accepted and he studied with Rabbi Yochanan. So much so that he studied. Rabbi Yochanan was one of the greats in his time. This is not Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, it's a different Rabbi Yochanan because this is in the 3rd century. The previous Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, right, was in the 1st century. So it's a couple hundred years later. And they became study partners. Not only became study partners, Reish Lakish had such a profound mind, such a sensitive and great ingenuity that Rabbi Yochanan, who was one of the great scholars of his time and actually, responsible partially for the Jerusalem Talmud, when he would bring up a point in Jewish law, Reish Lakish would tear it down with many, many arguments against it. And he would then, together, they built up the argument back up. When Reish Lakish passed away, Rabbi Yochanan was distraught. Who am I going to learn with? Who's going to help to build Torah teachings the way Reish Lakish did? What was unique about him? Because he came from such a past, he did discard the underground dirt where the reservoir came from. He used all of that talent and that capability and now used it for Torah and became a great Torah scholar that is quoted very often in the Talmud. He added to the Talmudic debate in Torah an added dimension because of where he came from. Now that he made good on it and did tshuva, he was able to give new angles, new perspective in Torah teachings that Rabbi Yochanan was distraught because the other great scholars of the day didn't have the capacity that he had. Is that clear? That's a powerful idea. So when Reish Lakish says that tshuva means that you can take your demerits and now transform them into merits, he was the living example of that. So this is the idea of now the Baal Tshuva, right? So now let's go back to understand on a deeper level this concept. So the Rebbe says the advantage of an ever-increasing wellspring is the limitlessness which the cement and cistern lacks. Similarly, the advantage of Baal Tshuva is that their spiritual work is not restricted. As we know, tzaddikim operate in a very orderly, measured way, advancing one step after another. The Baal Tshuva can jump every hurdle, advancing without taking steps. Now we can understand what does it mean, the blessing that Yitzchak, Isaac, is giving to Yaakov, to Jacob. Yitin, Yaakov, Yitin, give again. What is he giving? Remember that Yaakov is the embodiment of the Jewish people, through him the 12 tribes. But not only that, interesting, the Zohar says about Yaakov that he is the embodiment of Adam. Just like Adam was an incorporated all souls for all generations. So Yaakov is an incorporation of all the Jewish souls for time to come. Well, what are all Jewish souls? What are they going to be? Anybody? What are they going to be? Well, they're going to be righteous and probably tshuva, right? So it emerges that the blessing Jacob received, that God give and give again, includes not only spiritual and physical goodness, including both benefits, the full blessing itself, as well as the ability to develop it on his own, which was our first explanation, but rather it also includes the ability from above to live in both models of spiritual growth. The tzaddik model represented by God giving, as well as the Baal Tshuva model represented by giving again. God is giving, and he's giving again, not limited to only one way to serve God. In other words, that the only way you can serve God is if you get it right. And if you got it wrong, well, you better get it right. No, there's a mode of the Baal Tshuva, who can take that negative force and now transform it and now bring something from the other side. And it's bottom up. Also that concept of a creativity, as we mentioned earlier, similar idea. I mean, it's not creativity over here, but it's, taking from a deeper place. Is that clear? So with this, now we can understand something else. And that is the prelude to the blessing. Okay, so this is the blessing. Now we understand. Yaakov, who is the embodiment of the Jewish people, is getting a blessing that when it comes to serving God, we will be able to get it from above direct, right? The teachings. And God is also giving us the capability of bottom up, that we can have a greater creativity, which actually is, wow, just the thought that came to me. This ties in with an amazing idea. Torah is eternal, so it doesn't change. Right? 10 Commandments are not 11. 613 are not 612 or 614. It is something can never change. Carved in stone. Does Torah change though at all? Yes, it does. It does evolve. It doesn't change, but change might be the wrong word, but it evolves. Well, how's that? Is it carved in stone or is it evolving? Yeah. So you have, the other two common cultures in the basic common cultures or religions at least, is either, Western civilization, which is all changing. The envelope is constantly pushed forward, or digressing perhaps, I would say better, but the term is it's being pushed forward, right? And in Eastern civilization, they're all third world countries. Why? Because there's no change. Everything is carved in stone. Here comes Judaism and says, yes, everything is carved in stone, and at the same time, it evolves, right? The understanding that you're having tonight of this verse in the Torah that is eternal, yitain, vayitain, one word, right? Vayitain, vayitain, and he gave, which means, and he gave again, as Rashi explains, right? So that word is carved in stone, it ain't changing. But our understanding of it evolves. The Rebbe is giving a new dimension of this understanding that not necessarily was there in previous generations. That's not a problem, because our Torah wisdom is evolving. Just as Tanya was not there 1,000 years ago, Tanya is there today. How come? Because it's there. It was just not, it was like in shorthand, and now we've got the longhand version that was revealed to us. So it's there. It just wasn't revealed to us, right? So it's revealed, that means it's evolving. So this is what we're getting in the blessing over here, right? He gave the cistern, every drop, get it exactly the way it is, top down. Everything is eternal, no change. At the same time, ever increasing. It's evolving, that knowledge, that wisdom, that understanding. Again, we have Tanya. It did not exist 300 years ago. It didn't exist. People didn't have that understanding. Did Alter Rebbe make a new? No, he took it from all of the previous teachings, but it evolved, ever increasing wellspring, greater creativity. That's the first explanation. Second explanation, as we said, it means also that God is giving two modes on how we will serve him: the righteous and the Baal Tshuva. The righteous, everything is precise, every step, everything is accounted for, and ever increasing Baal Tshuva, taking from the depths of where that wellspring comes from, covered over darkness perhaps, and now transforming it into stronger current, giving a greater impetus in the divine service, a greater enthusiasm. As we see, anybody who came far from Judaism and now is engaged in their Judaism, right? Greater enthusiasm than the individual who was, born with it, raised with it, and, maybe is living on autopilot as a result. Okay, that's not a tzaddik, but you get the idea what I'm talking about, right? So now the Alter Rebbe adds a dimension over here. And let us share the screen over here. And he says, even the prelude to the blessing. Text number 10. This is right before he gives the blessing by Yite. And his father Isaac said to him, please come closer and kiss me, my son. And he came closer and he kissed him. And he smelled the fragrance of his garments. And he blessed him. And he said, behold, the fragrance of my son is like the fragrance of the field that God has blessed. So there's an interesting medrash that says on this, takes apart these words. Fragrance is one idea. Fragrance of the field is a second idea. And the third is God has blessed. And the medrash says, remember, the Torah is, the seed of the idea. And the medrash now elongates the message, or a message that's there. And the medrash says as follows: Isaac's statement, behold, the fragrance of my son, refers to the sacrifices as a pleasing fragrance, meaning referring to the holy temple. And that's the fragrance of sacrifices. Remember, we said that also the food he brought was sacrificial. Like the fragrance of the field refers to the vision of the temple destroyed, as the verse states, because of you, Zion shall be plowed as a field. That's the second point. And that God has blessed refers to a vision of the perfectly rebuilt temple in the times of Mashiach, the third holy temple, as the verse states, for there God commanded the blessing, life forever. So there's three stages in the preamble that Yitzchak is sharing with Yaakov. And the first thing is a smell, referring to the sacrifices in the times of the Holy Temple, right? The second is the fragrance of the field, which is referring to the Holy Temple destroyed, right? Because what happened to the Holy Temple when it was destroyed, actually it wasn't immediate, but sometime thereafter. First it was destroyed, was only destroyed by fire, and then it was completely brought down, and it became like a field, reduced to a plowed field. And then the third thing is God has blessed, is referring to the future temple. So the Rebbe asks a simple question. It makes sense that in the preamble to the blessing that is, remember, an eternal blessing to the Jewish people through Yaakov, to Yaakov and through Yaakov, is that, you're looking to the future, which is the Holy Temple and the final third temple. But what's with the destruction? Why mention destruction? You're giving blessing. Why mention destruction? So we have the answer. We answered it already. Because what are the two modes of blessing? What are the two types of people that will encompass or be the Jewish people? Will be the tzaddik and the Baal Tshuva, right? Two modes of divine service. So what is the Baal Tshuva? The Baal Tshuva is the one that there is destruction. But then from that destruction, what do you have? You build something even bigger and better. And what's that? The third Holy Temple, which is the final and everlasting one. So when the Medrash is alluding to over here is the reference that we just made in the blessing that comes Vayitain, and God gave a blessing, right? Gave a blessing and then gave again. So it's alluding to this fact that these two modes of divine service. And it's interesting, when the temple was destroyed, it wasn't plowed into a field. Why is the metaphor of a field that Yitzchak uses? Is because destruction can be very destructive, can be very, very painful. And that's not what he wants, that we should look at destruction. Look at it as a field that was plowed, meaning if it's plowed, you could seed it. And if you could seed it, something can grow and eventually will grow. What will grow? The third and final Holy Temple of God Almighty. So what is the lesson of course, here in our lives? When anything that is negative, a source of pain, something that's destructive, whether it's a relationship, whether it is something, in health, livelihood, or whatever, if we look at it as just the destruction, then nothing will be built. If we know that it's been plowed over what I built something and it's now plowed over, but it's a field. You could seed it. You can make something grow. Not only can you make something grow, but what will grow thereafter will be so much more beautiful, more eternal as a result. And that's specifically what's going on in the world today with the pandemic. And this, for those who had the opportunity to watch the Kinus HaShluchim today, if you didn't, please do watch it. Go on Chabad.org and watch it. Amazing exchanges, interactions, and speakers that are extremely inspiring. People have gone through, a lot this year, more than, that we would care to entertain in any way ourselves. And they came through it, and they're building the third and final Holy Temple through all their efforts and what they're doing, which is unbelievable and amazing. And that's the lesson that we have to take home for ourselves, is that we only have one way. Not to be a victim of our circumstance, not to feel sorry for ourselves, not to give justifications for whatever, I could have been worse, I could be worse, they are worse than me. Just look that there's a field there. Yeah, there was something that was destroyed, but just see a field that you have the opportunity that you could seed and make something more permanent and beautiful grow forevermore. And that's the story. Yeah. Please unmute yourself and ask any comments.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. 1 second. I want to get a video of everybody saying thank you. If you don't mind. But I want to see your faces and just say hello. So This would be great. Everybody?
Oh, hello.
Hello, Rabbi.
One second.
Thank
Okay,
you.
video. Again, go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi. Fine, great
Thank you,
class.
Rabbi.
All
That
right.
was awesome.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate
Very
that.
inspiring. Very inspiring.
Get this?
God should bless you
Yeah.
all. Have a good Zwoch. And
Amen.
Tanya tomorrow morning, some more Tanya.
See you then.
Thank you.
All the
That
best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
was Inspiring.
Where can we get
Listen,
your Tanya
very
in the morning, Rabbi? Where can we get your Tanya in the morning?
On Facebook.
On Facebook?
Yeah.
Can
Or
I,
YouTube. You can go to Tanya Rabbi on YouTube and you can subscribe there.
I can just go to Google's and put Tanya
Tanya
Rabbi.
Well, go to Facebook and put Tanya Rabbi.
But how do I get to Facebook? Through Google?
Oh, now, yeah, that's beyond my pay grade. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So can I just do Tanya
All
Rabbi?
right.
Fine? Okay.
Good night. Be well,
Good night.
everybody.
Good
Bye.
Thanks.
night.
Okay.